as Sarah said, I'm Chloe, and oh, to the mic. Okay. Is that better? There we go. I attended the Crow Canyon Summer Lab Program, and it was only a week, and that was because I wasn't able to have a typical 6-week thing, but the Pinhead was extremely understanding, and they accommodated it. And I attended it at Crow Canyon. Just in case you don't know where Crow Canyon is, it is just right outside of Cortez. And when I arrived and I met my other lab program members, it became very apparent that I was young, but I didn't find out until the last day I was 37 years younger than the youngest participant. And we toured Crow Canyon. Crow Canyon is, we stayed on campus in a hogan, and there were about 5 beds in there. I was lucky enough to be able to have my own hogan. And the lodge is where we had all of our meals, and then the visitor center is where our lab was located downstairs, and there was also a east patio where we kind of had our breaks at, and then there was a pond, which was really relaxing. And right next to the east patio were a family of marmots. And I guess at one point they just arrived there, and they typically don't live at such low elevations. The first thing we had to do was we had to learn about the Ancestral Puebloans eras. And speaking chronologically, it goes Archaic, Basket Maker, Pueblo I, Pueblo II, Pueblo III, and Modern. And then we went to the lab, and we went to different tables to learn about the artifacts we would be dealing with, which were animal bones, chipstone, groundstone, and pottery. Pottery is the most common artifacts found because it can withstand being buried for a long time. And there are 2 types of pottery, grayware and whiteware. Grayware comes in 3 different types, plain, and then neck banded. And the way neck banded is it's plain, but then at the top they lay a piece of clay down and then kind of overlapping. And then corrugated is a plain pottery, but at the very end, the potter will dig their nail into the pottery all the way up. And there were some really big pottery that had to have taken a long time to make. Whiteware is typically younger than grayware, and in order for something to be considered whiteware, it has to have a slip, which is what gives it the whiteware, the white background, and then the polish, which just gives it the shininess, which that can sometimes be misleading because some graywares are shiny just because overuse, things get shiny, and then paint. The one on the far left is actually a Cortez style because typically Cortez style pottery is quite messy and almost childlike. And then this is just another example of a piece of pottery. We went to a currently being excavated site near Cortez, and it's called Haney. Haney is actually unique because it is a place that people still live, and there's actually a lot of buildings built on top of pit houses and kivas. So the few structures that are still standing from the ancestral Puebloans are badly damaged, but the East Great House is the one that is pretty well standing, and you can still see that there are multiple rooms and everything, and great houses are believed to have been used for a community gathering, not so much for living permanently. And the West Great House is pretty much just a few walls, and if you probably saw it just walking by, you wouldn't think it was a historical building. And then we came back to do pottery analysis, and the pottery that we would be analyzing actually came from Haney, so it was kind of nice being able to see the pottery and then know where it came from and have that mental image in our head. So first we had to do is we had to separate the pottery from other artifacts like rocks and chipstones. And then we separated grayware from whiteware, and it was actually a little bit more difficult because this was one of the very first days, so it was really nice because the people teaching us were very patient. And then we weighed everything and entered it into the Crow Canyon database. These are a couple of interesting things that were found. This is a fossil shell, and they had actually been finding an abnormal amount of fossil shells, and This is a sherd of a ladle that had been repurposed as a paint pot. And when you're speaking of pottery, you use sherd instead of shard because shards are used for glass. And then we took a little field trip to the Edge of Ceder Museum in Blanding, Utah. And this was the most interesting thing, and it was an insect leg necklace. I don't know how it withstanded hundreds of years, but it did, and it was kind of gross, but also really cool. And there's also a shell pendant towards the top. And the next day we actually did chipstone analysis. Chipstones are any rock that is used, maybe the byproduct or the original core, in making projectile points like arrowheads and darts, or drills and knives. So we had to separate the rocks into the different styles, and then we wrote onto these little pieces of paper and weighed everything and then put them into their own bags. And this was actually quite helpful for Crow Canyon because we were able to do 3 or 4 bags each table, and we had 3 tables, and that would have taken them a lot longer to do that. With them doing it themselves, they were able to get a lot more done. And then we also did ornament analysis. Ornaments are any jewelry pendants or beads and bracelets and anything like that. And a lot of the times in ornament analysis, you will also look at game pieces, and they can be made from anything from rocks to bones to even more organic materials like yucca. I analyzed a game piece that was made from bone, a bead that was made from an indeterminate local material, and a turquoise pendant. And then we went outside and made our own ornament necklace. It was a little bit harder to use the drill than expecting, because like other people were using it pretty easily and it looked easy, but then sometimes the rope wouldn't twist back up, so it would get stuck, and I wasn't really good at it. But I made a necklace. The cord is made out of yucca, and I used a squash, a shell, and a piece of stone. My advice to potential Pinterns: be patient. I didn't find out where I was going for 5 months. I think I was the last person to find out. And just know that Sarah and everyone at Pinhead will find you a placement, and they have never not placed someone. So you'll be placed. Thank you.